See, I'm glad a lot of you came out today. I almost didn't show up because of the weather. I said, this is absolutely great. But tonight I'm going to cover, just quick thing, people who don't know me, because I've done this a couple times over the years and stuff, which I enjoy really coming to IMRO and to Ireland. But my own career was really, I just listened to this, 1 hour of the Eagles there, and I used to know those guys back in the 70s when I moved out to LA and dealt with them over the years and their manager. But most of my career was, I was in rock and roll bands when I was in high school. In college, fortunately went to law school. I was very smart because my brother and I have a twin brother. We had some records out when we were in law school, and great reviews, no sales, so I said, good. I'm glad I continued on the business side and legal side of this whole thing. But I was with ASCAP for about 37 years as executive vice president, and really dealt with, half of my life was in the radio area, where I think most of you are writing and with artists and writers in that area. And the other half of my life I spent with the film and television and the video game composer community and songwriter community. So the audio visual area I know very well, which I'm going to cover some of that tonight. Now, we're going to talk about, I had my brother and I did this article for, if anybody's in the film and TV area, for Score magazine, a Society of Composers and Lyricists. They're the main film and TV composer group and songwriter group in the United States. And it was called Royalties in the Age of the Internet. And I'm going to speak about that tonight, but you cannot separate the digital online world from the traditional world, the traditional media. And which is really, that's where the money is still these days, in the traditional radio, TV, CD sales and everything else. But the online world is becoming part of every deal, contract, license, whatever you want to call it, that you're going to deal with. So if you have any type of success in this business or any type of performances or anything else, you are going to be dealing with the online world. So this is going to be a combination talk where I'll talk about the traditional medium and some of those type of structures of the deals and what people can make, and also how the online digital world fits into it, because as you know, the world is changing, and it's changing very quickly. So now I'm going to run through a lot of stuff in the next couple hours and stuff, and I will save time for questions at the end there, so if anybody has it, just try to jot your question down and since you remember it. But the one thing I do warn you, if this wonderful book here that I wrote, Music, Money, and Success, it's like 560 pages of every sentence has a meaning. So I'll try don't get overwhelmed by what I'm going to talk about here, because I'm going to cover a lot of different areas. But once you get the hang of things, there's a certain structure and a certain madness to all deals. I mean, they may sound complicated, or they but actually you can bring them down to somewhat simplistic terms which apply in a lot of different areas. Could be a TV license, could be a motion picture license, independent film license, a video game license, a license for your music being used in a toy or in a ringback or in a ringtone. So quickly, the areas I'm going to try to get through tonight is the mechanical area, which is records, CDs, download sales, performances, which is what IMRO does. I'm going to cover I'm going to concentrate a lot on my experience in the U.S. Just as a reference point as to a lot of this stuff. The songs and film, television, and video games, an important source of income for songwriters and music publishers and for artists. Video games, music and apps, which is a growing area for a lot of people, a lot of writers. Music and commercials, mashups, remixes, samples. I'll even touch on a little bit about Broadway or musical theater, only because you've got two shows currently on Broadway, one being Once and the other being the Spider-Man, which are really by Irish writers. So it's an interesting field which most people don't think about, but I mean, you can make a fortune, or you can lose a fortune if you invest in the musical theater, but if you're a writer in a successful show, you can do exceptionally well. So those are some of the areas I'm going to try to cover tonight on it. And as I said, if you can hold your questions till the end, and we may as well get started. And if I talk to you and I walk by you on the street or something like that, I do have a twin brother. So he works at BMG Chrysalis. That's my one plug for the publishers in the room. And and we still look exactly alike, and we write all this stuff together. I write the stuff that's accurate in the book, and my brother, well, he writes the other stuff. But hey, let me start out quickly, because, you know, first of all, how many are artists in the room who are, okay, and you're all songwriters, right? Any people who are publishers also, or any lawyers? Normally I say get out when I say that, but that would remove me also, so I guess I'll stay. But you know, it's funny because the people that I deal with I've been very fortunate in my career in the United States, is that, you know, I've dealt with the writers always from 1971 to the current, and a lot of them very popular, you know, songwriters, also the artists, and their managers, lawyers, and agents. So you know, I grew up, or I got into business when a time where you could still connect with the writers and the artists before you had all these barriers and a lot of people surrounding them. So you know, that was good. But I also deal a lot with lawyers, managers, and agents, which have a whole different criterion, and they're normally looking for, you know, money advances, and they really need to know the structure of deals. So if for any writer, or writer-artist, I always tell them, so you don't have to be an expert in this field as far as the business side or the legal side or anything else, but you've got to have some comprehension of how things work. Because you know, in this case, a little knowledge is good, because you do have to understand how you're going to make money in this business, which I'm assuming all of you want to do. You know, it's not just a hobby, it's actually you want to make a living in it. So why don't we just start on the, excuse me, the mechanical side. You know, as you know, the mechanical royalties, they can mean many things. Years ago, all they meant was you had a physical album or a CD, you had a particular composition song on that physical album or CD, and when it was sold, you got a mechanical royalty. It was paid to the publisher by the record company then shared it with the writer. So you know, here in Ireland, it's as I recall, 8.5% is the mechanical rate. So when an album or CD is sold, the publisher gets 8.5% of the purchase price to the dealer, who then shares it with the writer. So it's a 50-50 split there. Now, what's happened in that area, as you know, due to file sharing, counterfeiting, and just change of preferences to streaming and streaming, the physical sales are significantly down. That doesn't come as news to anybody. But you do have a lot of download sales still, and there's a lot of streaming of music sites and stuff. Now, what's happened, we've gone away from the actual physical sales practically. If you look at singles, there's no physical single sales anymore, just about in the entire world. Most of it's downloads. But I gave you the Irish rate, but in the States, the download rate and the physical rate for a physical product, or if you download a song from iTunes and stuff, the publisher gets 9.1 cents from the record company, and who shares it with the writer. So, you know, you can do the math. If you sell 10 downloads, it's 91 cents. If you sell 1 million, you can just keep keeping the. One of the most important things you need these days, if you're in this business, particularly in the online world, based on the formulas, is a calculator. So I do recommend carrying one of those. But here's an example of the world that we're in these days. And I looked at SoundScan, you know, some recent issues. And SoundScan in the United States, they track the sales of all albums and singles, digital and physical. So it's a great service. But I'm looking at top albums. Bruno Mars, 38,000 albums sold, total of 616,000 since inception. Lumineers, 37,000 sold in this particular week, total of 819,000. So they list every album possible, and then the amount of sales, and then the total sales to date. So that's what SoundExchange does. So if you have a song on an album, and SoundExchange goes all the way to practically 0 sales, so you can't get information. But as part of their service, they do digital albums, and they actually break out the digital albums from the physical albums and give you how many digital albums you sold. So if you're in this business, particularly as a publisher, it's helpful to have this, because you have one song on an album, you know, you can see what's being sold physically in total, and then you can see what's being sold digitally. And a third item, you've got a digital tracks chart, which can, I mean, you can sell 5 digital tracks and it'll show up on this particular chart, and it's way at the bottom, obviously. But I'll give you an example. The Lumineers, again, they sold 155,000 digital tracks, not just physical singles, but digital tracks, downloads, and they've sold 2,800,000 total from inception. So again, it's a great source of information, a great reference tool, because it breaks out the physical versus digital sales. And if you look at these charts over the years, obviously the whole thing is tilting toward the digital sales, as well as streaming, but at least there's digital tracks and digital albums. Forget physical sales, they're becoming very rare. Now, in the United States, it's interesting because how the world has changed in the mechanical area. As I said, it once was just 9.1 cents for a physical sale, that was it. The download rate's the same, but here's all the new configurations that have been, there are actually rates been attached to them. Back in 2008, they have a copyright royalty board which actually decides rates in this area. And publishers, record companies all come in to and make your arguments. Then a copyright board of judges actually makes the decision at what the rate should be for physical and download sales. Now, they came up with 8 different configurations back in 2008, and they recently added 5 more new configurations of mechanical royalties. Now, this is really just for your own information because, as I said, the physical and download sales are one thing, but you've got all these other different things, for instance, on-demand streams, limited downloads. These are 2 ways that you can actually make money. Now listen to some of these categories and you'll get what I'm talking about. Standalone, non-portable subscriptions, streaming only, okay? Standalone portable subscriptions, mixed use. Standalone portable subscriptions, mixed use, and bundled services. It goes on and on. It gives all these different type of configurations. Most times people don't know what these are, but at least there's a number attached to them that where actually publishers and writers make money when you have an interactive streaming, let's say, for instance, which would be a site where people go to and actually choose the songs they want to listen to. As opposed to non-interactive streaming, if you go to a streaming service and you have no control as a consumer as to what you're hearing, that's a non-interactive stream. Interactive stream is when you're actually picking out what you want to hear. So there are different rates for both of those, which relate to the music publisher, the songwriter, and it relates also to you as an artist. So there's a whole separate rates for artists. And now, I'll give you the calculations to see what type of money we're talking about here. The calculations, if you're a publisher, it's A to Y listing here. So you've got about, 23 or 24 categories. Everyone has a number in it, and at the end, it came out to a per play on a subscription service of 0.000725 cents. So as I said, you really need a calculator for this, and if I translated it into euros, it probably would sound a little better or worse, depending on where you're from. But as you see, here's another example, just to get a feel for this whole thing. Here's 2 million plays on a interactive streaming service. It ended up being $860 for the publisher, an equal amount which shared it with the writer. Slacker, 36,000 performances, about $95. So again, it's something you've got to be aware of. There's not much money in these type of services, but in the future, it is really the future of this business. So these numbers will increase. Just be aware that they're there. Some new ones that just came in are paid locker services, purchase content lockers, limited offerings, mixed service bundles, music bundles. These are types of situations where if you take a song and you combine it with a non-music related thing, that's a mixed bundle. So again, these are new configurations, there are rates attached to them, there's not much money involved here, but it is something that at least for the future, if your stuff is being performed in all these different configurations, money will be generated on it. And as I said, not much money to date, but at least it's there, and things are, which to me is a good sign. Getting away from mechanicals, also there's a whole situation with ringtones and ringbacks, where for many years you could make a lot of money out of ringtones particularly. They've come down in recent years, but there's still a decent amount of money in there. Now you've got a couple different types of setups here. For any ringtone sold in the United States, and remember, it's great some of these licenses because they describe here's a master ringtone, excerpt of a composition used to reveal an incoming call or other communication which is downloaded or transmitted to a phone. Okay. That's a very complex explanation of what a ringtone is, which all of you know. Then you have a ringback, which excerpt of a composition is transmitted and heard by a caller when they are calling a phone or other communication device. So you've got the two definitions there in these things. We all know what ringtones and ringbacks are. For ringtones, the rate is 24 cents for a ringtone sold in the United States. So what happens is the service pays the music publisher 24 cents. Publisher then shares it with the writer based on whatever writer-publisher deal they have. If it's a 50-50 deal, then the writer gets 12 cents. If it's a different deal, you just do the math there and stuff like that. So, if you sell a lot of ringtones used to sell about a million downloads of a ringtone. I mean, you start timesing that by 24 cents, it's actually a very good source of income. And even if you sell 1,000 ringtones, 2,000 ringtones, you can still make money on this stuff. Now, with the ringbacks, they're treated entirely differently. The ringbacks are treated similarly to how ringtones and ringbacks work over here, where it's a percentage of the retail price that the consumer pays for the particular ringtone or ringback. And then say it's 10%. So if a ringtone sells for $2, 10% of that would be 20 cents. That would be the payment to the publisher for that particular ringtone. I think it's a little high, the number I gave you. And ringbacks, they're interesting also in some ringtones. The deals are structured where, you'll see a big sale on ringtones or ringbacks sometimes, where they'll sell it for 50 cents or give it away for free, just as a promo item. What publishers do in these type of deals, they will put a floor in the deal where even if the ringtone is sold for half price or zero, given away for free, they'll still get a certain amount of pennies or in this case I had, with a floor of 10 cents. So the deal that was structured on this particular one was 10% of the retail price paid by the consumer or a minimum of 10 cents. So you always have a floor in these type of deals just in case that they want to sell them for way less than they're actually being sold for. So again, it's a good source of income. It's come down a bit, but ringtones and ringbacks particularly are still doing well. So again, what I try to reinforce to everybody is that, you look at, I'm covering a lot of different sources of income here and a lot of different types of deals that, one or all of these may apply to you. If you're a very successful writer or have a very big song, everything I'm going to talk about tonight, will apply to you in some way or another. But, for a lot of others, you may have just sell 20 ringtones. So, but at least you know how the deals are structured and the type of money that you should be getting. So, each of these, there's a whole package, which is what I look at, and may not apply to you, but still you need to be aware of it when it does come your way. One of the most important source of income for songwriters and for publishers is the performance right. That's the right that's handled by IMRO here in Ireland. PRS for music in England, SACEM in France, GEMA in Germany, APRA in Australia. Every country of the world has an IMRO, which is collecting this particular right. And the right, as you know, the right really has to do with radio and TV performances or live performances or streaming services or, practically any time you hear music being performed, universities, colleges, bars, grills, nightclubs, Muzak systems, wired music, businesses, IMRO and whatever society in each country is negotiating a license for the use of that music. So if you're a TV station, you need a license from IMRO, I'm using Ireland as an example, to perform all of IMRO's writers' music, as well as all of the music that IMRO has a reciprocal arrangement with. And IMRO here has a reciprocal arrangement with every society of the world, so that's how you're paid for overseas performances. These foreign societies I mentioned will collect for you if your works are being performed, let's say in Germany or Brazil or Spain, and then send the money to IMRO, who then distribute it to you. Just as vice versa, through these reciprocal agreements and contracts, IMRO is collecting for all these other writers who are non-Irish writers. They're members of, let's say, German society or the English society, and then sending the money to them if they have performances here in Ireland. So that's really basically how the performance rights work throughout the entire world. Excuse me. Now, in the United States, you have the two largest societies in the world, ASCAP, which is the American Society. Oh, let me just preface that. There are 3 organizations in the United States that are performing rights organizations. They do what IMRO does here in Ireland, they do it in the United States. The first one is ASCAP, which is the American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers. It's a writer, publisher-owned organization, similar to IMRO, and it was founded in 1914 by Irving Berlin, John Philip Sousa, the great writers of the day, to really collect and enforce this particular right in the United States. In 1939, BMI was formed, which is Broadcast Music Inc., which is owned by the broadcasters. And in 1930, there's a small organization called SESAC, S-E-S-A-C, which is also formed to compete with ASCAP and BMI. And there's, as I said, they're a very small privately owned organization. So, and you have 3 organizations doing what IMRO does in the United States. And you as a IMRO writer have the choice to go with either of these organizations to collect your royalties in the US. You just notify IMRO of what your choice is, and that's who collects for you for US performances. Now, the amount of money we're talking about in the US is substantial. It's a total $2 billion business in the United States alone between those 3. And ASCAP collects $941 million in this most recent year, BMI about $899 million, and CSAC about $100 million. So there's a lot of money being produced by all the users of music. And just to give you an idea, radio in the US is about $400 million, which that goes into these 3 organizations. Television, cable, network, local TV, anything like that, about $650 million. $200 million comes in from live performances and general licensing. So there's a lot of money just in the live performance area. And then $700 million comes in from foreign societies. Now, we're talking about new media today. Of that $2 billion, only about $70 million is from new media licenses. So you can see it's a very small part of the business currently. Most of the money is in traditional media, but it's a growing number, and it's just not there yet. It's still a small item, but in the future it's going to be very important, only because the online digital world is being incorporated into every type of deal these days. And so if you're looking at a TV license or a movie license or a video game license or any type of traditional media license, they are now incorporating some clauses in there where it gives them the right to stream or to download in the digital world for particular fees and stuff, so which I'll get into shortly. But again, bear in mind that everything is being incorporated into one license these days, traditional media as well as all new media. Now, in the States, all the deals are negotiated deals between ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC, separate deals obviously, with the users of music. Could be radio, could be TV, it could be wired music or live performance venues, whatever. Now, if ASCAP or BMI cannot come to an agreement with a user, then it goes to court, and a court decides what the fee should be. So that's why in the United States right now, you've got a lot of negotiated deals going on between the performing rights organizations and the users of music, and a lot of deals that are going to court where a judge actually has a trial, listens to both parties, and then makes a decision as to what license fee should be in a given area, let's say radio, or in HBO, or Pandora, Spotify, you name it. So that's really how it works in the States now. There's a lot of challenges right now in the United States, but there is an awful lot of money. So if you do well there, it can be a significant source of income for any of you who have ever gotten distributions from ASCAP or BMI. I'll give you a couple examples just to give you an idea of the type of money we're talking about in this area. Because, as I said, most of the money comes in from radio and TV, just as it does here, or most societies are the same ways, traditional media. But here's a couple of examples, and I'll show you the type of, if you're successful there in the States, the type of money that can be made. I looked at one ASCAP and one BMI major chart song from last year and stuff, and I looked at it over a 4-quarter period, meaning over a year, and because everybody pays quarterly. And one of the songs earned, it had 875,000, no, actually, it had 1,200,000 performances, which translated into about $875,000 paid to the writer, and equal amount went to the publisher. That's just for one major hit song. Another example I pulled out was, I'll use the ASCAP song, they put it in credits, 126,000 credits. It totaled $882,000. Two very similar songs as far as performances. To the writer, equal amount to the publisher. So I give you the high-end numbers just so you know if one does have significant success. This is only one country I'm talking about, but it's the most important country as far as dollars go. You know, you can absolutely make a fortune. And then there's a catalog value, which, as you know, these songs earn money years afterwards and become very valuable, particularly if you're looking at, you know, a source of income for which, you know, would go to your estate or children or husband, wife, friend, whatever. So it's an important thing. Those are the high-end numbers, but then you start looking at some of the other numbers, and if you're looking at, you know, television, both in the United States, there are distinctions. For any who write for television, there are distinctions between how each type of use is paid. So I'll give you an example. If you write the background music for a TV episode, or you have a visual vocal, someone singing your song, you know, on a TV show, or if you write the theme song to a show, or if you have a jingle, an advertising commercial, you write the music for that. In the States, all those different types of uses have a different payment. So they're not all treated the same, whereas here in Ireland and in quite a few other countries, everything is based on duration. So if you had a theme song or a visual vocal being performed or underscore to a TV show here, you know, all they would do is just add up the number of minutes or seconds, and that's how you're paid, basically. Whereas in the States, if you're a film or TV writer, you've got to know all these different distinctions because it has a great effect on how you would be paid. So if you as a writer had a song or wrote the theme song to a major television show, you know, it could generate, you know, $1,000 in writer money, equal amount to the publisher, for one performance on a primetime network show. That's the highest payment. But if you had a visual vocal where someone was singing your song in that same show, it might be worth $700 instead of $1,000. Or if you wrote a minute of music, underscore, behind the scenes and stuff, for that particular show, it could be worth $200. So I give you these distinctions as far as numbers because in the US and some other countries also, they have distinctions between how something is used and actually what its value is. It's easier here in the UK and some other countries. Everything's based on duration, so you don't worry about those distinctions. But just keep it in mind if you do have some success in the US or get a song into a movie or into a TV show that's actually shown on US television. These distinctions come into play, and you'll see them set out in statements. Now, let me give you a couple other examples, just of the all different types of areas that are licensed. And you know, you could go through the IMRO and you could see all these different things. I'm just giving you the states as a reminder. Here's somebody who had 355 performances on an airline, American Airlines. It was worth $21 to the publisher, equal amount to the writer. Here's something, a digital jukebox, had 1,440 performances on a digital jukebox, $505.50 was the performance payment. Now, I'll go into some of these deals, how they're structured, but I'm just giving you ideas as to a Sprint. It was 21,000 performances, Sprint phone, $41 to the publisher, $41 to the writer. A college radio, 130 performances, $5. Now, I mention all this because you look at a statement as a writer or as a publisher, you're going to see all these different categories of uses, from the main ones like film and TV and radio, to all these other different categories where actually, you know, numbers are being inserted for performance of your work in all these different areas that are licensed. Now, again, to put the online digital world currently into perspective, that's why when someone tells me, you know, they've just gotten, you know, 3 million hits on YouTube, I start to laugh. I mean, it sounds absolutely great and stuff like that because, as I said, if you have 1 million performances on mainstream radio in the United States, you'd probably make about $800,000, $900,000. You have that same million or 1.2 million performances on YouTube, one of them earned $85 and the other one earned $100 to the publisher. Equal amount to the writer. So again, you have to put the online world into perspective, particularly big numbers when you know, you start seeing, my God, I must be doing absolutely great. I'm going to go buy a house. I suggest that you hold off a little while until you get a mainstream hit. It'll be better in the future, but as of right now, the money is very low. And I gave you YouTube figures. It could be Pandora, it could be Spotify, it could be practically any other streaming service. Currently, there is not a lot of money in those. The most important thing is that they're licensed and the deals are being structured, and they're experimental deals in most cases, and they will increase in the future as more money is flowing through the system and the business models work out. And some companies will drop by the wayside, some companies will do quite well. So to just keep it in perspective and keep it in mind. Also, there's live performance payments. As you know, our IMRO has them here in the United States. When your works are performed in practically any venue, which is very new because for many years ASCAP and BMI only paid on the top 300 top grossing tours. So if you're on a decent sized tour, you would share in the royalties from license fees from those particular tours. But for live performances in bars and small nightclubs or small concert halls, that money was not distributed to the writers who actually had performances. That's changed in recent years, so now IMRO is receiving money from both ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC for performances in smaller venues, which is good because it wasn't a source of income. They're not talking about a lot of money here, but at least you are getting paid for works that are being performed in the U.S. in all the smaller venues these days, which is relatively new. Also, you make money from theme parks, Netflix, and everything else. But I've given you examples. The monies really, again, are in if you have hit songs. If you have a big hit song, and I remember Paul Brady had a huge song, and it was a country song. I'm drawing a blank on the title now. Although I think it was Last Goodbye or Long Goodbye. He did exceptionally well. So and Irish writers, a lot of them have been going to Nashville and stuff and co-writing with a lot of the writers down there. So you can do exceptionally well if all of a sudden you connect and get a chart song, even if it's a minor chart song. The monies can be very good, both in the country field and the pop field is the much more lucrative, but it's a very good market. So that really covers that area. And remember, the good thing through reciprocal agreements that IMRO has with every society of the world, you are getting paid for performances outside of Ireland, which is good. So let me go to a different area. TV licensing. It's funny. Any country I go to, I pull the week's law or the TV listings just to see what's being performed in any country. And much to the chagrin of many countries, a lot of the stuff is U.S. productions, but that's not my fault. But you are helping U.S. writers very much, and I thank you very much, and they do also. But again, the TV area is very important. But the structure of TV deals, like if somebody wants to use your song in a television show or an episode, I'll give you a quick example of just going directly to my book here. Page 199. Here's like a typical conversation which would happen regardless of whatever country you're in. Okay, a producer, a music supervisor, who's the one who picks the music for a TV show normally, will call the music publisher and they say, okay, we'd like to use the song. They'll give the name of the song because they're aware of the song. We want to use it as a background use. We want a free television five-year license. Option for internet streaming, which is in all these licenses these days. Option for life of copyright. I'll explain this stuff in a second. Option for new media rights, excluding theatrical. Option for home and personal video. Option for theatrical use. Option for promos, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what a conversation is like in any type of almost TV deal where somebody's looking to put your song into a particular episode of a particular show. Because what television producers of any size or any type of program need is they need as many rights as possible so they can show the TV episode anywhere they want to. Now, you're the one who controls all these rights, or if you've signed to a publisher, then the publisher is controlling the rights and will make these type of deal. But just bear in mind that they need as many rights as possible for their productions. Now, the type of deals that are out there these days is they used to be, this kind of may sound strange now, but most TV deals, when a producer would go to a publisher and they say, okay, I want to use your song in, let's say, an episode of whatever TV show, they were 5-year deals which would be renegotiated after 5 years. And I mean, which to me makes no sense these days, because the last thing you want to do is, if you have a successful show, have a 5-year license if you're the producer, and then have to renegotiate for the next 5 years or 10 years with the party once the show is a success. So what happens these days is that there are two types of deals going on. One is an all media license. All that means is that when you sign, your song goes into a TV show, that producer has the right to use that song forever, life of copyright, in any type of medium that they want to broadcast it in. So it gives them unlimited control. They never have to come back to you and ask you for additional permissions. That's an all media license, and as far as the compensation or the fee for those type of licenses, they are the most expensive that publishers will grant, because it's giving away all rights to a producer forever, and that's the last payment you'll see, with the exception of the performance payments from IMRO or APRA or ASCAP, BMI, or CSAC, or whomever, when it's broadcast. Now, that's one type of license, and the other type, well, actually, I'll give you, this is what it sounds like. So they're pretty short. All media now known or hereafter devised via any distribution method or means of transmission for any viewing device without limitation, all forms of, they go television, media, internet, they list a whole bunch of things. You're giving away all rights, they can perform any they want to. And they're interesting licenses, even if you don't understand some of the things that are mentioned in there. I mean, it's simple. You've given all rights, they can show the thing anywhere what they want to. The good thing about these things, the song is always in there, and any time it's performed on television anywhere in the world, you will be getting paid as a writer and publisher, based on the song being in there. Now, what's happening with a lot of shows now, and particularly the music-centric ones, like the Dancing with the Stars, or any country's version of American Idol, or The Voice, or any of those type of shows, they'll have very interesting licenses. And I'll read one which will give you the kind of feel for what you've got, so you're not surprised. There's like a 3-page license to put a song into. I think this was Dancing with the Stars, or one of those shows. And it lists the name of the composition, lists who the writers are, who the music publisher is. It lists whether they're a member of IMRO or ASCAP or PRS, just because they need to know that. The use, there'll be a thing there, it tells you how the song is actually used in the particular program. In this case, background vocal or background instrumental. Obviously, people are dancing, so that's the type of use. If it was American Idol, it obviously would be a visual vocal. That would be the use of these things. Now, they have rights, and all that means is that in the initial license here, you're giving up a certain amount of rights that they don't have to worry about. In this case, it was free basic cable, satellite, and pay television, including video on demand, excluding theatrical internet downloads and home video. Now, what you've done in this license, you've given them the right to show this show on any form of television. If it goes to the internet, they have all these, or if it goes into home video, they have all these different options in these agreements spelled out, that if a song does this, we owe you an additional amount of money. These are all negotiated. So I'll give you an example just so you know what I'm talking about here. The fees in this particular case was $1,400 for a use that was up to 30 seconds. A little bit more when it was a use that goes up to a minute. So you've got two distinctions there now already in this license, based on duration. If it's less than a certain amount, they pay one thing. If they use it for a minute, it's paid an additional amount. The second thing is, if it goes international. If it goes, let's say in my case, it was a US show going, let's say, being performed in Ireland, or in England, or in Spain. There's an additional amount that is paid to the music publisher if the show goes beyond the United States performances. Then it goes, if it's streamed on a particular sites, which a lot of TV shows, Netflix, and a lot of other services are out there, growing source of income and growing source how people are watching television and movies. If it goes to streaming, there's an additional amount. In this case, it was $375 that was paid to the publisher, who then shares that with the writer. Then it went to downloads. A lot of shows and movies are downloaded these days. In that case, this one was a greater of 10% of the price or 20 cents per single audiovisual download. So there were new figures added in this if this particular episode was downloaded by a consumer instead of being watched on regular TV. Then this was fun because they had an actual figure in here for this particular type of show, Dancing with the Stars or those type of shows. They actually have live shows that travel around the country. And this was to put that one song into the show, an additional $575. So again, the publisher is making more money depending on if it got into this live traveling show of Dancing with the Stars or whatever music-centric program it is. Then there's out-of-context promotion. All that means is an additional fee if they use that song outside the body of that show to advertise the show. Say it's a really good song and they want to put it into a commercial or stuff like that. That's out-of-context promotion. There's an additional fee paid to the publisher for that, which is then shared with the writer. So I give you one example here. As you can see, these licenses can get very complex. You either have an all-media one where it's a complete buyout for all different rights for a particular fee, and you get your performance royalties, of course, or you go into these type of licenses where there's an initial fee up front for the initial airings on regular TV and cable and possibly video on demand, and then there's all these different options that as each thing is triggered, the publisher and the writer get additional amounts of money. So that's how the TV deals are structured these days for all of these type of shows, and they're fascinating licenses only because it teaches you the business completely. You can look at all the new different types of distribution models that they have, all the different types of, and you look at the fees and you get a feel for what the fees you're going to get, and they're pretty similar, all these type of shows on it, particularly if they're network shows. I've got The Voice. Is The Voice in Ireland? Yeah, the Voice is here. The Voice is very similar type of agreement, lists all the dollar signs and stuff, electronic sell-through episodes. In this one, they've got audio record sales, so if you get the mechanical rates, if you download it from iTunes, a particular song. They've got ringtone and ringbacks as part of these deals also, where if you use it as a ringtone or a ringback, you pull it off the show, there's an additional amount of money that's paid to the publisher, and the writer and stuff. So they're fascinating licenses. The one funny thing about them, I've given you an awful lot of detail here and stuff like that, is in the main, you don't negotiate these licenses. Because these type of shows, they come to you and they say, do you want to be in the show or do you not want to be in the show? If you say yes, this is a license with all the numbers filled in already. So, and if you say, well, I'd like to renegotiate or I want a different amount for that particular thing, you most likely will not be in the show. But as I said, for those type of shows, everything's filled in. All you do is say yes or no, and that's it. But I tell everybody, I recommend they always go into these type of shows. American Idol sometimes a little tricky. The first episodes and stuff where people, are noted for wrecking songs. You may not want to be in the first episodes, but at a certain point, they start using the songs legitimately, and then they all sound pretty good. But again, it's a good source of income, and keep in mind that these shows, believe it or not, do have a life beyond the initial airings. And a lot of these shows, they will have separate options in here for what do they call them? They're for recasts and other things where they use little bits of pieces from initial shows and they put them in a subsequent show or a recap show, RECAP show. So you get additional monies if they use your particular little clip, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, if they use it in a subsequent recap show. So again, they're fascinating licenses. Most licenses, or many licenses, any license for a successful show is always an all-media license. It's the highest paying license, and you're giving the producer all rights. These type of shows, they're interesting. And one last thing, if you ever see shows that have hit songs being used as a theme song to a series, CSI is a good example. They're using 3 of the Who songs for all 3 CSI shows. Those type of deals are interesting because you're using a pre-existing hit song being used as the theme song to a show. Every new, and there's performance royalties obviously from, the Performing Rights Organization every time the show is broadcast, but for every new episode of that show, most theme song deals, you write the theme, it's a one-time payment, that's it. And you get performance royalties afterwards. for these hit songs being used in a TV show, there's a new sync license, meaning a payment for every new episode of that particular series. So I'll give you an example. In a case of a major series, you could be getting $4,000 to use this theme in every new episode of a show. They use the same thing. And then you get your back-end royalties when it's performed on television from the performing rights organization in your territory as well as every other territory. So getting a hit song as a theme song to particularly a successful show is absolutely great. So that's why Pete Townsend, do not feel sorry for him at all. So, you know, it's funny, my brother had with Chrysalis, they negotiated the theme song to Sopranos. And it was a song by A3, it was an English band and stuff, which, you know, the album never went anywhere, but the guys made an awful lot of money just because it was this type of a structured deal where it was a pre-existing song being used as the theme song to a very successful series, which will have a life forever. So, you know, it's a great area. The movie area is one. Now, when I talk about movies, I'm talking about every type of movie. This could be major feature films, independent films, college and university films, student films, whatever. The same rules pretty much apply to everything. Now, the first thing I always do is when I'm dealing with film composers or anybody with a song in a particular film, the first thing you always remember, if you're a TV writer, get a song in a TV show or a feature film of any nature, make sure you get a copy of the cue sheet for that particular episode or for that film, because what a cue sheet is, it's a listing of all the music in a particular TV episode or movie. Now, it'll list the title of the songs being used, or if it's score, it'll be like Hans Zimmer or James Horner or something like that, if they wrote the score to Pirates of the Caribbean or to Avatar or one of those movies. But for all songs, they list the songwriter's name, the title, who the music publisher is, who your affiliation would be. In your case, it would be IMRO on there, and how the song is used in the particular film. Because remember, how it's used in a particular film in many countries determines its payment. If it's underscore versus a visual vocal versus a theme song, in some countries have distinctions as far as payments go. Now, as you know, also when a movie comes out, with the exception of the United States, every other country of the world licenses movie theaters. Now, here in IMRO does it here, PRS in England, SACEM in France, GAMA in Germany, SOCAN in Canada. Movie theaters are licensed. The theaters pay the local society money for the use for all the music in that particular film, and then the performing rights organization in that territory distributes it to the writers and publishers who have music in that film. If it's a Canadian film. SOCAN collects the money, sends it to IMRO if there are IMRO writers. That's how the distributions are made. But this money can be substantial if you have a successful film, obviously, because there are a lot of formulas out there for how films are licensed, but it could be 1% of the box office for all participants. It could be less than that, or it could be different formulas, but money is being generated. So again, that's why it's so important. If you do have any compositions, songs, or score into any type of audiovisual programming, always get a copy of the cue sheet. Check it to make sure all the information is accurate, because that's how you will get paid forever anytime that film or episode is shown anywhere in the world. So always try to get a copy of the cue sheet and make sure it's accurate. Now, it's funny, I'm looking at the discussion I just gave you about if it's 1% of the box office. James Horner, I signed, who did Avatar and Titanic. He has all the music in those background score. Hans Zimmer, I think he had he had Marvel's The Avengers, which is number three. No, I'm sorry. I think he had that. Lord of the Rings was Howard Shore. But these composers can make an absolute fortune in this particular right, because the films do over $1 billion in overseas performances. But for any writer, even if you have a song in a film that does not do well, some money is being generated in movie theater performances. So, and you will get a check as a writer and the publisher, even if it's in the closing credits of a particular film that doesn't do particularly well outside of your local country. So again, it's a source of income there. For some people, it could be quite substantial, but for a lot of writers and publishers, it's something added that you get in your statements, which is great. You know, somebody's licensing it, collecting it, and actually paying you for your creative works being used in these type of situations. Now, I pulled a cue sheet here. Just, everybody see Django? That came through here. The film did relatively well. You know, not a very violent film, but you know, yes, not exactly Disney. But it was a good film, and Ennio Morricone, who did a lot of the Clint Eastwood spaghetti westerns, you know, wrote the score to it. But a typical film here lists all the different types of you know, score that he did. They all have a title next to their name, but then there are a lot of songs being used. I Got a Name, Charles Fox and Norman Gimbel was the big hit song in the 70s. Sister Sarah's theme was from a different movie. Payback, James Brown song. Freedom, the old Freedom from Richie Havens. In the Sweet By and By, and actually a traditional public domain work being listed in here, where they actually copyrighted the arrangement. And if you do that in the States, you can actually make money from songs that are actually out of copyright. So again, this is like a 10-page cue sheet listing all the songs and all the compositions, type of use, giving all information about these things, and that's how, whenever this movie is performed anywhere in the entire world, everybody on this cue sheet is going to get paid on it, according to this particular thing here. As I said, the internet performances, you're not generating a lot of money from Netflix or those type of streaming services these days. But the distribution models are changing where, 10 years from now, would not be correct what I just said at all, because a lot of people are going to Netflix and all the streaming services for all their audiovisual viewing and stuff. So the rates will go up in these areas. Just a quick thing about how fees are determined if somebody, is putting your song into a film. There are various things that they look at. Obviously, the budget of the picture is one important consideration. If there are multiple uses of a song, let's say they use your song in a lot of different scenes, or if it becomes thematic, where let's say it's becomes part of the particular character, the main character in the film, they play the music every time you see this particular person. If there are lyric changes, you always add extra money on it, onto the fee and stuff, because they've changed the particular song. The duration of these type of licenses, in the film world, they're always life of copyright. They're all media licenses. Very rarely do you ever have any options or renegotiations, because if you think of the nature of a feature film or any film, they need to distribute that everywhere throughout the world. They don't need to be going back to somebody to try to renegotiate a particular right in that film. So all film licenses are life of copyright. All rights are given for the particular fee. The territory for these things, universe or the world. Obviously, films are shown all over the world. They don't want to have options for every different country of the world. There are a couple different things that are used in these deals where, I call them limited theatrical distribution. Let's say you have a song in a film that's for an independent film, and the producer wants to put it only into film festivals to try to get interest in the particular film. In those cases, the publisher or the copyright owner, if they're the writer, normally gives a very low fee, let's say $100 or $500 to put the song into the film, whether it's a documentary or a small independent film. And with an option in there that if the film goes beyond that initial film festival license, meaning somebody picks up distribution for a certain territory or for more advanced distribution than just film festivals, there's an additional amount of money that's paid to the music publisher, who then shares it with the writer. So it's like an option deal where, as things happen to this film, you've given it a very low fee to get the song in the film, but when the film starts to become semi-successful or more successful, you share in the increased success of this particular film. And these are fairly standard for independent films and documentaries, and some of them even have box office kickers where if the film, let's say, generates $1 million in box office, or $5 million, or some figure, then you would get an additional amount as a music publisher for the film reaching that particular plateau, and which is great. So you can have a film that comes out of nowhere and actually make an awful lot of money out of the blue. And if you have these type of deals in effect, The producer is happy because he's got the song that he wants in the film for a very low price, and you're in good shape because if anything happens to the film, you will get additional monies based on its success or its increased distribution. And always keep in mind, no matter what you've done, whenever the film is shown on television or in movie theaters, with the exception of the U.S., you'll be getting performing rights payments, IMRO in the case here in Ireland. So that's why these feature film, the film licenses are pretty standard and they're pretty straightforward. I'll give you one just so you have an idea of what this stuff sounds like. It's a 3-page license, very standard. It gives the name of the movie theater, name of the movie, the title of the song, who the writers are, territory is the world, which I already said, term in perpetuity, forever, nature of the use, this was a background vocal up to the full length of the composition, grant of rights, all inclusive, everything, wherever they can sue. The interesting thing about this one was, with the advent of the internet, there's a new clause that was added entitled linear only. And I'll give it to you. The rights granted herein include any and all media, provided that such devices embody the picture substantially as generally released, and provided further that the viewer is not invited to manipulate the images and or audio program. Now, all that means is, because what you can do these days in the online world, you can change things around in a feature film, you can rearrange them and everything else. This license prevents someone would be in breach if they allowed that to happen for this particular license. So all you're doing is you're making a non-linear, linear only license, and which means it has to be used exactly as it is in the film without change in any context. So that's a particular clause that came in obviously from the internet. And then there's clauses in here about a soundtrack album, the type of money you would make on a mechanical, and also screen credit. Screen credit for almost all feature films is for any songs. They're always in the back end crawl, or the scroll at the end. And in some cases, if it's a very well-known song or a very well-known writer, you'll see it up in a single frame at the start of the feature film. That's rare, but it does happen depending on the stature of the writer and the stature of the song. Most times it's in the back end and it's always listed on the cue sheet. So one area in this area that keep in mind also, when you see a trailer for a feature film or a TV show, if they're using outside songs in that trailer, that many times will give a payment, the fee will be higher than any other type of use. Because if you think about it, particularly in some of these bigger feature films, they've spent $50, $100 million, $200 million to produce this film, the additional amount in advertising, and they need something when you're looking at the preview in a movie theater to draw your attention to this particular film. That's why if you're watching a preview in a movie theater and you hear a film and it's a great rock and roll song or a great classic song and stuff like that, most likely it's not going to be in the film. But it makes you pay attention. They spent so much money, so they'll pay a lot of money for these type of trailer uses. So just keep it in mind. I've mentioned feature films of a high nature, but this could go for any type of feature film use. Trailers are a source of income, and for big songs, and for major films, they can be substantial. For smaller features and smaller documentaries and stuff, it's another source of income that you would negotiate as a music publisher and get additional monies. Now, one thing on that, if the song is in the film, and as part of the sync license, which is the license to put the song in that film, it always includes in-context trailers. That means if they show a particular scene from the film, promoting the film, and your song is in it, and it's in context, meaning the way it was in there from inception, there's no additional payments. So that's part of the fee that you negotiate, the publisher negotiates with a film producer. But if it's a new song, outside song, or it's used out of context, it's a whole different negotiation and a whole different fee structure. Is everybody with me so far? Yeah. As I said before, do not get overwhelmed, because I'm giving you an awful lot of stuff. But there is, as I said at the start, there is a method to the madness in all these type of deals. You just deal with it slowly, you read them. And I learned the business, and a lot of the people I know who are interns and who have come up as interns in this business and stuff, if you have access to the contracts or the licenses or the type of deals, you learn this business faster than any other way. I could sit here and lecture to you for 5 hours. If you saw 5 of these licenses, which I'm not going to give you, you would learn this business more than I know. So, but again, the structures are all in these deals, and I cover it in the book if anybody's interested in that whole thing. But it's an interesting world where you can make an awful lot of money, particularly in the audiovisual world. The video game area, which is an important one still, video games are a little bit down as far as the sales go. But just so you know, most video games, if they're a regular video game, like I always love one, there's Gary Scheinman, who's an absolutely great video composer in LA. I think he did one called Destroy All Humans. Okay, it was a great video game, great concept. I haven't played the game yet. I can only imagine what it's like if you're destroying all humans. But Gary's done very well, but he does the score. And any songs in those type of games, or Grand Theft Auto, or any of those type of regular video games, there's a one-time fee, and it's like a sync license for a TV show, and that's it. There's no back-end royalties based on video game sales or anything like that. So it's a one-time fee to put the song into a game. Now, the type of games where you can actually do quite well are all the music-centric games. DJ Hero, Dance Central is a big one. Rock Band and Guitar Hero were very successful. Where if you had a song in those type of video games, you could actually do very well beyond the initial license that you would get for putting that song into the game. I'll give you a couple examples here. Here's one where it's like, this was a per unit royalty with increases based on the number of games, the number of units the game sold. So in this case, the publisher negotiated a fee for the first 500,000 units that was sold of this particular dance or music-centric game, 1 cent per unit. So the publisher would get 1 cent for each of the first 500,000 units, and would share it with the writer, most likely 50-50 or 75-25, depending on the deal. When it hit 500,000 units sold, the rate went up to 1.3 cents, which would be paid by the video game producer to the publisher. Once it hit 1 million units sold, which for a long time, for many years, these games were selling 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 million units. Once it hit 1 million units, it was 1.5 cents per unit sold for that each song used in that particular video game. So if you add it up, if you start selling 1 million units of stuff, you could do quite well on a game like that, even though you're talking pennies. Pennies can easily translate into tens of thousands of dollars in some of these cases, depending on the game. Here's another type of deal that is made for those games. This one was 3 cents per song on the video game for all sales. Okay. And also, so if you sold 1 million copies, you would get 3 cents times 1 million. Okay, that's a straight ahead computation. Not a one-time fee, but a continuing fee based on sales. In this case, they had a floor of 2 cents. So if they reduced the price of the game, the publisher would get at least 2 cents for each unit. So that prevents them from reducing the price or giving it away as a promo gift and you getting nothing. So again, having a floor in there, a concept I discussed before in the context of a different deal, have a floor in there, just like I did with ringbacks. There are floors in there, so they give away the ringbacks. You at least get something as a music publisher and a writer. Here's a different type of deal. This was $7,000 to put the song into a game, so you actually got a figure, just like a sync fee for putting a song into a TV show. Additional $4,000 when you sold 350,000 units. Additional $6,000 when you sold 550,000 units. And $4,000 for every additional, $4,000, just translate, use euros instead. I should be using euros, but I'm using dollars. $4,000 for every additional 250,000 units sold. So here's one there where you're getting an initial price, an initial fee, and then as it hits sales plateaus, you're upping the fee in dollar amounts, not penny amounts like per copies. You're getting an actual fee for when you hit 350,000 units, actual 6,000 when you get 550,000, and then for every 250,000 units sold after that, you're getting $4,000 or 4,000 euros or whatever the case may be. So that's a different type of deal. Now, if you don't get the song in the initial game, there's a thing referred to as DLC. It's downloadable content. Now, this comes into play a lot of times if you have a game that's produced in one country and is sold in a different country, because you want local product a lot of times in for the local game. Let's say a Spanish game or an Irish game or you want some local bands or local writer stuff in there because people know that they might want to go sing along or play along with it. So that's localization. But in all cases where you have DLC, downloadable content, it's when any song is downloaded into a game. It could be, you could have a whole list of 100 Rolling Stones songs, or 100 Beatles songs, or 100 U2 songs, or various other artists and stuff and songwriters. If they allow their songs to be downloaded into your game, could be Rock Band, DJ Hero, Dance Central, whatever. They're not in the original game, but you as a consumer download them into the game after you've bought the game. The type of deals, here's a couple. The fee that goes to the music publisher is 15% of the actual retail price, or 20% is 20% of net revenue is another type of deal. So you're getting a percentage of the price or the revenue that's received for the download of that particular song into the game. So there's another whole source of income for writers, songwriters, and music publishers, as well as artists, because most of these deals, whoever the recording artist and the master recording owner is getting the same amount as the music publisher and songwriter in all these type of deals. It's called a most favored nations clause. If you ever see MFN, that's most favored nations, meaning everybody in that video game gets the same fee and the same structured deal. If anybody gets a better deal, it raises everybody else's fee and deal to whatever the better deal is being negotiated by somebody else. So you'll always see most favored nations clauses in these deals. So, and you accept that when you go into these things, you say, okay, I'll deal with it because everybody else is getting the same, paid the same amount as me. So again, it's a great source of income if you get a song into one of these type of games. Regular games, one-time fee, that's all you see. But if any of these music-centric games, you can actually do well based on all these different type of configurations I've just given you. And the downloadable content thing is great if you have a pretty big song that people really like that comes out after the game is actually released. You can do 50, 100,000, 200,000 downloads of that particular composition. And when you're talking about 15 to 20% of the revenue, I mean, and they sell these things for $1 or $2. Sometimes they bundle them, number of songs all in one package, one bundle, what they're called. Then everybody shares pro rata, like 50% of the bundle. If you have 6 songs in a bundle, whatever the price is, let's say it's $3, everybody shares pro rata of whatever the 15% of the net revenue was. So again, it's an area a lot of people don't think about, but it is a very, it's a good source of income if you have the right song or you have the right master recording, meaning you're the artist or the record company. And you guys have apps, music and apps, or any apps that contain music? No? Yeah. One person. I've got 30 minutes on apps I was just about to do. Not really. Anybody's apps, I don't care. Anybody's apps using music. Legally, of course. But no, I tell you, apps is a very big, despite the fact of this audience, apps is a very big business. Only joking, folks. But I'll give you a couple of examples. And by an app, I said, apps. There are so many millions of apps being developed. You go to the iTunes and stuff. It's scary what's on there. And thank God there are ways to find the good apps. But there are music-centric apps. There are apps that are just for music streaming apps, artist-based apps, karaoke apps, song lyric apps, every type of app imaginable. But the good thing is all of them are using music in some way, music and or lyrics, which are copyrighted, they're protected. So you can't just develop an app and start using music in it and not be paying anybody or getting a license from somebody. So, but I'll give you one. Here was a good, Glee was over. The TV show Glee is around, it's still around. They're still doing reasonably well, but here's a Glee app which will give you a good idea. You know the show, and they use an awful lot of compositions in it. And here's what a typical app will look like, but it's great because it really explains music in an app. And I'll go through these categories. About a 3-page license, and it looks like a checklist. It gives the song title, this is for a Glee app, songwriters, who the publishers are, just like all these other licenses. Territory, this was the United States, but it could be Europe, it could be the world, whatever the territory is, you negotiate. The term, all these type of licenses, whether they're video game licenses or app licenses, when you put music in these type of things, They're short-term licenses. They can be 3 years, 5 years. Practically none of them are like film and TV licenses, which I mentioned are life of copyright licenses. The reason obviously is because these things don't last long. Video games have a shelf life of a certain amount of years. So they're not life of copyright deals, they're shorter term licenses. If they want to use it beyond the license term, whether it's 3 or 5 years, they just renegotiate again for an additional amount of money. So you get a term here, description. This was a masters in song performed in time synchronization with scrolling lyrics across the mobile device's screen. This is a very complex way of saying that you're listening to a device and you're singing along with it. You know, but that's how they're describing it here. But that's the basis of the apps. Now, the user performances, meaning your performance in this particular app, when you perform and you're singing along with it, cannot be recorded or transmitted in any way to any other medium. They have protective devices in these things. So you can't email it to somebody else. It's limited to your particular use in this particular game. Now the media here, it says audio downloads, transmissions performed exclusively in this platform. Okay, very restrictive, but it's part of the GLEE app. Is music used in an audio only or audio visual manner? Audio visual manner. Okay, they actually ask you, is it going to be a stream and you hear only the audio, or is it going to be an audio visual piece where you actually see the visual on it? So again, all of these things determine the price of whatever you're charging on it. Full or partial song, in this case you're using a full song. Are you using the original recording? The answer was yes in this thing. It's not a separate recording. And it just goes down, and but the most interesting thing is, it also tells, is this interactive or non-interactive? A basic concept in these things. Most important thing is how do you get paid for this music in an app? And this is the Apple formula, but this is very standard for almost any type of app. Let's say the app sells for $1. You download an app, the GLEE app for instance, sells for $1, you pay $1. Apple takes 30% off the top. That's the Apple fee for practically everything. Then that leaves you with 69 cents in this 99-cent download. There's a lot of times a developer who developed the app, they take 50% of what's left. So Apple took 30%, the developer took 50% of what's left, that leaves 34 cents left after you do those computations. Now, the 34 cents is then shared between the music publisher, songwriter, and the recording artist, master recording owner. So 17 cents goes to the publisher, 17 cents goes to the record company, and that's how the 34 cents is split. Publisher shares it with the writer, record company shares it with the artist, depending on what type of deal their contract, the recording contract says. So that's basically how apps work. It's a big business in the States. It's growing throughout the world. And there are so many apps out there using music, but that's the basic structure of how you get paid for this stuff. So as you can see, if you have a song or some kind of composition in any of these type of things, including these apps contain the right to scroll the lyrics of the song along with the music as part of the structure of the deal, you can do very well if it becomes a very successful app. Just like video games, you start selling a lot, you'll do well. If you only sell a couple, you at least get paid something for these type of situations. Anybody have any songs in advertising commercials at all? One? Would you like to have a song in a commercial? Yes. I would. It's funny. I always ask that because when I started back in pretty much in the business side in 1971, I mean, there were so many writer artists whose a lot of publishing contracts have approval rights where the writer has approval over many types of uses. The primary one being advertising commercials, because most writers are they used to be very sensitive to using songs in advertising any type of product. I mean, I remember the Doors many years ago. I never met Morrison, but I knew the other three guys very well. They turned down a Cadillac commercial for Break On Through, one of the Doors songs, because there was a four-way partnership and all four partners had to agree as to any type of license for commercial products. So that's how the Led Zeppelin Rock and Roll got to be the Cadillac commercial, because the Doors initially turned it down because they couldn't agree, parties couldn't agree that they wanted to license it. But again, that's one thing you always have to remember when you're dealing with the advertising world. If you're a writer, if you've signed to a publisher, one of the negotiated clauses is the approval rights restrictive rights list. And it really is, it's what a writer doesn't want, what a writer wants to be contacted for before a publisher can actually license that song to a particular product. So if you don't like cars or you don't like deodorants or whatever, you can actually put those in a contract, and it restricts those type of products. The publisher, if they get a request from you for your song, they have to go back to the writer and get permission from the writer. Now there's a certain limit in these contracts where if the writer doesn't respond within, let's say, a certain amount of days, then the publisher can go ahead as part of the deal. But those type of clauses are big in advertising, and they're big in movie and television sync licensing. A lot of writers will have contract with restrictions as to NC-17 films, or nudity, or violence. Django was a good example. I mean, if you had a contract with a writer whose song was being put into Django, you better deal with what you're about to deal with. If you have a no violence clause, or you don't believe in violence or against it, you're not going to get your song into that movie. The publisher would have had to go into the writer to get permission. But the advertising world is great as far as the money that can be generated, and most of it's in the upfront fees, because performing rights organizations do license advertising commercials, the music commercials, when they're broadcast on television or radio and stuff. But in most societies, performing rights organizations, they pay a very low amount for advertising music when it's broadcast. Some societies had to use a durational requirement where, I believe IMRO, and I think PRS, and I think some others use durational requirements, so everything gets paid the same just based on the length of a particular composition. But ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, APRA in Australia, SOCAN in Canada, they all have different rates, and the jingle performance, advertising music performance, is at the bottom end of all performing rights payments. So just keep that in mind if you do ever get music in a jingle that's outside the Ireland, because depending on the society, their rules apply. But I'll give you some examples of how the internet has changed some of these deals, because okay, here's one. These deals used to be very long contracts and stuff, because any type of advertising commercial had all these different options. You'd start off with a small territory, or or even a mall. You could have a test period in a mall, then it breaks out into a city, then it goes into a region, then it goes into a state, then it goes into a country, then it goes into additional countries. As part of all these deals, you had options in there where additional amounts of money would be added, given to the publisher and the writer, if it hit each of these options. So if a commercial became, particular advertising became successful, you could actually do very well if they broke out into, particularly if it was a national campaign throughout an entire country. But here's the internet ones are interesting because they've added clauses in there which were never, in these type of agreements. Here's one it was a car commercial, and it gave the name of the car, number of spots, number of TV and radio spots. Term was 1 year. All these deals are 6 months or a year, short-term deals. They have the option to use the commercial. In this one, they had an option for if they used that song in a continuing commercial for this particular car, there's a 15% increase in the rate, whatever you got for the fee, for the second year's use. So again, another option that you got to deal with. Territory, this was the United States, or you can go to the other countries, the world. The media is important because this was all TV media, including the internet, industrial uses, but not limited to meetings, in store, in cinema, kiosk, et cetera, et cetera. It'll just list all the different types of uses. This one was interesting because you cannot translate this particular song into any language other than Spanish for the Latin markets, or French. You can do it for French-speaking Canada only. So you've got, obvious two items thrown in there because you look at the United States, very heavy Spanish population, so you want to be able to use that commercial at least in Spanish in addition to English. Canada, you've got all Quebec, or French-speaking Quebec. So in Canada, you want the right to put it in English and in French. So again, certain peculiarities of certain countries actually determine these licenses. But, and this was is product exclusivity. All that means is that you can't use this particular song for any other type of automobile commercial. Now, it could also, this could be all all advertising exclusivity. All that would mean is that you could not, this song could not be used for any type of product, regardless if it was different from the product that you're advertising. So when you start negotiating deals on these type of things, if an advertiser is looking for product exclusivity, you're making more money than just a straight commercial where there's nothing to deal with, no other cars can use a particular song. If you're dealing with all advertising exclusivity, that's the highest fee you will always negotiate because you've taken your song out of the market for all types of uses for a particular period of time. So keep that in mind if you're negotiating these deals. Again, most advertising deals, there are a lot of different options. If the commercial goes beyond a certain point, you will make additional amounts of money based on where the commercial travels. And for subsequent years, you look at some commercials, they keep on, the song becomes so identified with the particular product that as part of these deals, you'll have additional amounts, always a percentage amount, added into the deal if they wanted to use in the second year, the third year, the fifth year. It just keeps on going to a certain point. So those are pretty standard as far as these deals go. So that's pretty much for advertising. Again, it's a great source of income. A lot of writers and publishers are not adverse anymore to having their songs used as promo items for products or promos for any other type of use because it's a way of, particularly for older compositions, it's a way of reinvigorating them completely. There's a whole new generations that come up who may not be aware of these songs, the songs that I'm aware of, but if they see it in a commercial or in a TV show or in a feature film and stuff, you got some great songs and records out there. I said, man, so they'll go out and buy it or, it'll bring new life. And particularly in the performance area, you'll get additional monies from whatever performing rights organization is in whatever territory is being broadcast or shown in. So go out and buy products that have music in them. That's my motto for the evening. Let's see. Hey, one thing which is fun. I didn't bring any. Normally, I carry, if I'm in LA, I'll carry a big bag of all these dolls and toys and all these other things that use music and just drag them all out, sit them on the thing and put them all off at once, and they all go off and you hear music in all of them. It's nutty. But it's a great source of income, and what I do is that each year I'll pick up for toys and stuff, because music and toys is a very big business on it, and if you go to any toy store, you're going to see all various types of toys with music being used in it. And now I'll pick up, there's a magazine, I think it's Toy Sales, I think it is. And it'll show all the different types, it comes out before Christmas, shows all the different types of toys that use music in their toys. And it also shows the manufacturers and who the people are, so which is important to know if you're trying to push your music toward that particular field. But here's a typical toy deal, and it really, I'll start off with tooth tunes. Has anybody know what tooth tunes are? It's a toothbrush that plays music, and it's for kids primarily to get them to brush their tooth. And I'll describe this thing. It's put out by Hasbro. And okay, each brush plays a 2-minute clip from a particular artist to encourage the child to brush their teeth for the dentist recommended 2 minutes. Now it's very healthy, okay. Once activated, the handle plays the featured song on the chip by transferring vibrations through the bristle, which acts as transducers into the front teeth, through the jawbone, and into the inner ear. Okay, now it's starting to sound a little dangerous to this particular toothbrush. But again, and at a certain point, it becomes so loud it can be heard by those nearby. So with increasing, but it stops after 2 minutes. So that's the recommended time that a dentist. So this, if you're a parent, this probably drive you crazy. But at least it gets kids to brush their teeth. Now, you've got the Beach Boys song, Black Eyed Peas, the Village People with YMCA. Imagine hearing that every morning. Rihanna is in there with Umbrella. So got all these songs that actually, are licenses. How these licenses are worked, that they're very easy. They're like 2 pages. They're non-exclusive, meaning you can use a song for any other type of advertising or toy, obviously. You can't alter the fundamental character of the music and the lyrics. You can't change anything about it. You can't manipulate it in this particular device. You can't use the title as the title of the product, okay, title of the song. Not to exceed 2 minutes in length. There will always be a timing thing in these type of licenses. Territory could be US and Canada. It could be Europe. It could be UK and Ireland or whatever. That's in there. Term, they're 3 years, normally shorter term licenses. And there's a sell-off period in all these type of things. So the manufacturer has 6 months after the term is over to actually sell all the product that they've got on hand. So you just don't stop selling them after the term is over. There's a 6-month period or a year period, whatever you negotiate. As a royalty, this one was 10 to 15 cents per unit sold. So, you could do, some of these things do sell a lot of units, if you're getting, 10, 15 cents, it's not a statutory minimum statutory rate like 9.1 cents or whatever the download rate is. They're negotiated rates because it's very a different type of configuration. So again, you can this could be a toothbrush. It could be here's an animated dog one where they use a song. The timing was 30 seconds, and this included parody lyrics, so you could change the lyrics in this particular song. So it was a new recording. This was 3% of the wholesale price, or 14 cents per unit per song, whichever is higher. So I've given you just a different type of deal that these things can that you can negotiate. The one interesting area is the greeting card area. Is one that was huge at one time, music and musical greeting cards and stuff, and the physical cards are coming down. Obviously, people are going more to the e-cards. So you start looking at those type of deals, which you can actually do quite well. Here's a Hallmark cards license. They want to use a song in a musical greeting card. Could be a birthday card. It could be whatever, congratulations card. Title of the song, territory. This is worldwide. All these cards are worldwide because you can sell the cards all over the place. Term, 5 years, plus a 1-year sell-off period. Again, short-term license, ability to sell it off. Length, not to exceed 60 seconds. Most are 30 second, some are 15 second, but there's a durational requirement. You're only using the best part of the song. The grant of rights, all physical greeting cards, e-greetings, gift bags, and an electronically enhanced card. So that's new. And they actually have a definition in the greeting cards that says, okay, physical greeting cards. Not that I've explained this, but meaning physical, everyday, and seasonal cards designed to deliver a pre-printed and our consumer added social expression, birthday wish, holiday greeting of all types and configurations, etc. That's a regular card, no big deal. Then they have a definition of electronic greeting card. Card designed to deliver a social expression, birthday wish, holiday wish, of all types and configurations, sounds like the other license, that are perceived or experienced via an electronic device and may be delivered to the consumer via electronic transmission, e.g., for example, via the internet, mobile phone, cable television, or other electronic delivery media not yet in existence. So anything that comes out in the future in the new media world, this license covers it for the period of time this license is in effect. So I throw this out only because it gives you, here's new media entering itself into a traditional type of license. It's just a clause being added in there. Now the payments in this particular one was 5% of net sales. So some of these are per unit royalties. Most of them could be 10 cent per unit, but a lot of them are percentage of net sales, whatever percent that you negotiate. That's how these deals work. Yeah, and then that's it for these. So, like if you go into a store and you start picking up the stuff, to me it's always fascinating because if you know how these deals are structured, and if music is your business, I mean, to me it's great walking into a store and picking up a greeting card, playing the music, and looking at who the writer is, who the publisher is. And there's an equal amount going to the master recording, so the master, the artist is also getting it. So to me, that's great. I said that could be me, or that could be Jackson Browne, or that could be the Eagles, or whomever your favorite artist. But hopefully it will be you, and at least you know how the deal is structured. It's pretty basic, and you just add, as I said before, in all these traditional music licensing deals, traditional media, Most of them, you're just adding the internet online clauses into the deal, and sometimes they're included, most times they're included in the negotiated one-time fee. Sometimes you might have a separate fee like I did in some of those TV licenses where if there's streaming of an episode, you get an additional amount of money. But many times they're included in the one-time fee as part of just another type of media that whoever has used your song can perform the program or the episode or whatever it is. Yeah, so. I think I had a, here's one. Here's a music in a slot machine. Anybody go to Vegas? Yes. Oh, okay, well, there's actually a music telling you, how much money you're going to make if you put the music in a slot machine. This is the only way that you will make money in Vegas, assuming they're giving you a correct count, which we'll see, one never knows. Some other things, digital jukeboxes, there are licenses for that. Regular jukeboxes, they're pretty standard. But the digital jukebox is easy because it's interesting because the license is about a three-page license, and here's the description. Uses digital recordings that are transmitted digitally from a central database or server to the individual jukeboxes around the country. There's a grant of rights only for these type of jukeboxes. Royalties on a per-play basis. This one was 1/2 cent, which is per composition performed, which is pretty standard. So plus you get the performing rights are excluded, so whether it was IMRO or ASCAP or BMI or SASM or GAMA, whatever the performing rights say, that's a separate negotiation the digital jukebox companies have to make with the local society. So you're getting a 1/2 cent as a publisher writer here for one performance. You also could very well be getting a performance royalty from the performing rights organization that you're a member of. So you got two streams of royalties coming in. They're small, yes, but I tell you, it's another source of income, and that adds up, when you start looking at how much money you've made from a particular song. I'll give you one that has nothing to do with the internet. Okay, I'm sure you're all sick of the digital online world and this discussion, but here's one, a lyric reprint license. As I said, nothing to do with the internet. I like this one only because this was lyrics on high-end jeans, okay? So you've got the reason it was licensed. It was an interesting license because the publisher had made a deal with this manufacturer, and the manufacturer gives the range of price for these jeans, and it's $30 to $200. Now, it's a pretty wide range for the same type of jean, but they have different distinctions as the type of stores and the prices that are sold by the store. So, okay, this was a 3-year license to put the lyrics on those particular high-end jeans. Territory is the world, could sell the jeans all over. The royalty was 10% of the wholesale selling price per composition, per unit for high-end specialty retailers. They give it a name, Barney's in this example for the US, 9% for department stores, and 8% for mass market stores. So again, you've got different prices in all three of these type of stores, same jeans, and you have a different royalty rate based on the type of store, that's selling the jeans. So to me, it was an interesting license because it shows you if you're thinking and you're negotiating. This to me was a great example of somebody else who said, well, let me think of all these different categories where these jeans are sold, and let me give them a break on some, or high-end stores I would charge more and stuff. So it's a good example of how to negotiate a license using options and some ingenuity also, because I thought that was kind of a fascinating license. It's kind of fun. And I saw the jeans, I would never buy them because I didn't like the lyrics on the jeans, and plus they wouldn't fit. I don't think they were for guys. But for girls, they were absolutely great. They're great, and some of the prices were pretty extraordinary also. But all I could think of was the writer and the publisher were actually making money based on the type of store that was selling these particular type of jeans, which I thought was pretty cool. Everybody know what mashups are? Okay, mashups basically, you're taking two songs, really putting them into one. You need permission to do that, and how most these things are treated is that you'll have two separate licenses. It won't be like licensing one song for a TV show. You'll actually be licensing two compositions as a mashup because you have separate publishers, separate writers. So those are really licensed as two separate ones, not as one particular unit. So that's the mashups. They're pretty easy. The more interesting ones are remixes, which are huge throughout the entire world. And a remix, as you know, is taking a song or a record, from one market and really putting it into a different genre. I'm simplifying, but that's basically what you're doing. You're taking a country song, making it a dance record, for instance, or any making a hip hop record, whatever. Now, remixers can get paid a lot of money depending on the remix, because some remixes are quite extraordinary, the way they've transferred a song into a different medium, into a different genre. In most cases, the remixer gets a fee, never gets co-copyright ownership. The original publisher keeps the copyright. And normally, publishing is never split. You never give publishing interest to a remixer. Most of these are separate deals for a fee. And I'll give you, here's like a two-page remixer agreement. It's from a publisher, record company, the writer, this particular remixer, to remix the track to a particular genre. Remixer has to clear all samples, so you can't use samples. And if the remixer, they can't add a sample of somebody else's song into the remix. They're responsible for that, so they can't do that. It has to be commercially satisfactory before you get paid. So the publisher or record company, when they hear the remix, they have to approve it before you get paid. There's a delivery date by a certain date, and a fee, which includes all recording costs. So these are all in deals if you're the remixer. Now, occasionally, you will find such a change that there will be some royalty participation by the remixer. That's very rare in the United States. It happens in France and some other countries where remixers are actually getting a performance royalty as an author on these things, as well as some kind of copyright interest and an interest in when you have mechanical sales or sync licenses and stuff. But that's the rarity. Normally it's a one-time fee for the remix world. I'll mention one thing about, because there are a lot of people who are artists in this room. There's, in the United States, and this is fairly recent, I mean, you have in Ireland and a lot of other countries of the world a particular right that it's a performance right for sound recordings, where artists and record companies actually make money when their sound recordings are performed on the radio or on streaming or stuff like that. In the United States, there is no such right for traditional radio. So if you hear records being performed on the radio in the United States, the performing rights organizations, the writers and publishers, are getting money because the stations are licensed, but the artists and the record companies are not making any money for U.S. performances on the radio. A law came into effect back in 1995 and then 1998, where it's a limited right sound recording performance right. Whereas here and in other countries, you have this right for all types of uses primarily. In the US, it only applies to non-interactive streaming. All that means is that for any website, Pandora is a good example, or I think Spotify would qualify. Anytime you have a website that is streaming records, the website actually has to pay money to an organization called Sound Exchange, which collects the money for that limited right only for non-interactive streaming, where you're not choosing records to listen to. And they're collecting it and then paying it back to artists and record companies. Now, this started off back in 2002, and I think they generated about $6 million for this particular right. And it applies, remember, to anybody, any country that has this right in existence in their own country. It's a reciprocal agreement. So that's why I'm bringing this up. This started out as a $6 million income back in about 2002. In the most recent year, in 2012, Sound Exchange collected $507 million just for this particular right. So it's a huge success and growth area in the States. And it applies to artists, and it applies to record companies, but it also applies to background musicians and vocalists. So how the money is split up, all this money is sent to overseas societies who collect this right. So if you're an Irish writer belonging to the Irish organization, you would get money for these type of performances in the United States. But 50% of the money goes to the record company, sound recording copyright owner is what they call it. 45% goes to the featured recording artist, whether it's a group or a single individual. And 2.5% of all this money goes to any background vocalist on that record, and 2.5% goes to any background instrumentalist who's on that record. So it's a tremendous new source of income for any type of artist, whether you're the headliner, whether you're the master recording owner, copyright owner, which is the record company, or if you're just a musician or singer on the record. There's money being now collected in the United States only on the internet streaming sites, but it is adding up to an awful lot of money, and it's being distributed throughout the world to any artist who's a member of an organization, a country that has this particular right, which all of Europe, I think, as I recall, does. IMRO does, PPL in the UK does, and various others. So it's an important source of income. You don't have to be a member of the US organization. It's just like the PROs, Proing Rights Organizations, for that right. There's reciprocal agreements between these societies where you get paid for other countries' performances of your work as an artist, as a singer, as a vocalist, so, which is good. Sampling, again, I'll just throw it out there. If you're sampling somebody else's compositions or sound recordings, meaning somebody's song or meaning somebody's record, and you put it into your own, always get permission. You can make a deal with people in most cases, but if you use a sample of somebody else's work, you put it into your own original work, you can lose all royalties very easily if it's unauthorized, if you haven't gotten permission. There are a lot of different examples where major songs have put a sample in there and it wasn't authorized. They didn't get permission from the short segment of a record or a song from somebody else's song, and they've lost all the royalties to these major hit songs forever. They've lost all copyright, their names are taken off the songs, and other people's names are put on. Most sample situations, when they're done legally, all that happens is that you add the new writers. It's a negotiated deal. You add the new writers and the new publisher, or artist, as the case may be, if you're using the record, into a new title, and that's how that particular title gets paid forever. So so everybody. The old song is still paid the same way with the old writers and the old publisher on it when that's performed. When you use the new song, when the new song is performed with the sample in there, the old writers and new writers all get paid. Same with the publishers. Same with the sound recordings. If you're using sound recordings. So just keep it in mind, if you are sampling, always make it an authorized sample. Don't do it without permission, because you really stand to lose a lot of money. And it's happened to some major writers and major artists who have lost everything, like millions of dollars, because of unauthorized samples. Once the record's out there, you can't take it back, and it's a tough negotiation, with somebody who you've already sampled their song and released the record. So, just word to the wise. Hey, I want to thank everybody very much for showing up and dealing with me and listening to me and everything else. Really, thanks, guys, very much. I hope it helped.